These stadiums weren't just about goals. They were about moments when the ball was faster than human reflex, when thousands held their breath simultaneously because something happened that didn't fit familiar patterns. A shot, a bang, a flight through the air, and for a split second, no one understood what had just happened. These are 7 shots that made entire stands tremble. And now, let's start with the first one. Top 1, Roberto Carlos. Roberto Carlos was already a force of nature long before that one moment etched his name into the physics books of the soccer world. More than 100 international matches, goals from impossible distances, a left foot that tore defenses apart like paper, and a career where speed and power became trademarks. But on that evening, with a stationary ball from a seemingly harmless position, his shooting technique transformed into something that even experienced pros couldn't explain. The ball left his foot at a speed beyond usual measurements, started straight, then suddenly broke sideways, spun at an angle that even modern tracking systems struggle to reconstruct, and struck as if it had defied the laws of aerodynamics. Analyses speak of extreme spin, minimal air resistance, a perfect point of contact, yet no simulation could exactly reproduce his flight. The goalkeeper didn't react too late. He didn't react at all because his brain simply couldn't process the change in direction. Today, Roberto Carlos is no longer on the field, but in the stands, in executive boxes, a symbol of an era where instinct was stronger than algorithms. His shot remains not a goal, but a question that soccer still hasn't found a definitive answer to. Top 2, Gabriel Batistuta. Gabriel Batistuta was never a striker of subtle gestures. Over 300 competitive goals, top scorer in several leagues. The driving force of a national team that thrived on his presence and a body built for impact. In that particular scene, however, as the ball bounced up in front of him from a full sprint, everything his name stood for condensed into a single touch. The shot exploded, not elegantly, not smoothly, but brutally precise, as if someone had released a steel spring. Measurements speak of extremely short contact time, of an acceleration that left little room for correction. The ball visibly deformed before it shot off with a trajectory that barely dipped yet remained unstoppable. Goalkeepers later reported hearing the strike before they saw the ball, an acoustic shock, followed by silence. Analytically, one could speak of optimal hip rotation, maximum impulse, and a perfect body axis. But even the most modern models fail to consistently reproduce this blend of violence and control. Today, Batistuta no longer appears in the penalty area, but as a calm figure on the fringes of the soccer world, honored, quoted, remembered. And this shot lives on as the moment when power not only overwhelmed, but tore apart every reaction chain before it could even begin. Top 3, Adriano didn't step up to place the ball. He stepped up to dominate. In his prime, he collected goals with an ease that skewed statistics, led attacks almost single-handedly, and turned every touch into a threat. In this one moment, however, as the ball rolled slightly outward from his movement, time seemed to briefly stand still. The shot came without a backswing, almost raw, propelled by an unusually low center of gravity, and struck the ball so centrally that spin was barely measurable. This is exactly what made it unpredictable. A flat, aggressive trajectory that neither dipped nor rose, but cut through space like a projectile. Reaction studies show that the ball covered the critical distance faster than the eye could focus. The goalkeeper moved, but without aim, because there was no clear visual anchor. Modern analyses speak of maximum impulse transfer with minimal rotation, a borderline case between technique and raw physics. Today, Adriano rarely appears, mostly away from the bright lights, a reminder of a talent that was briefly greater than any system. This shot remains the instant when the ball didn't fly. It stormed. Top 4, Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard was no player of chance. For years, he defined games through timing, through an instinct for that one moment when risk becomes necessity. In this scene, he wasn't free, wasn't comfortable, but under pressure, with the ball slightly off to the side and the defense closing in. The shot came from his movement, half turn, half release, and struck the ball with a mix of top spin and raw power that first made it rise, then brutally pull downward. High-speed recordings show an unusually rapid transition from the upward to the downward phase, a flight that defies conventional parabolic models and forces the goalkeeper to make a false judgment. The reaction time was there, the movement too, but the calculation was missing because the ball dropped faster than the eye could predict. Analysts speak of perfect power transfer in the torso and a point of contact that only works at this specific angle. Today, Gerrard is a figure on the sideline, in the technical area, a quiet observer. But this shot remains etched as the moment when determination shaped a trajectory that no one could read in time. Top 5. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Zlatan Ibrahimovic always operated outside the usual coordinates. Goals from distance, from turns, from situations that shouldn't actually be a finish, were part of his repertoire. In this moment, however, it wasn't a show of strength in the classic sense, but a decision against all convention. The ball came high, slightly behind him, his body in a position considered biomechanically unstable. Yet from this disorder came a finish that defied all expectations. The contact was brief, the angle extreme, the trajectory initially harmless, almost floating, before it suddenly accelerated and struck in an area that no goalkeeper covers. Analyses show an unusual combination of side spin and a late change of direction, triggered by a point of contact that demanded millimeter precision. The keeper's eye reacted correctly, but the body followed a false assumption because the ball remained in the air longer than experience would allow. Today, Zlatan is a presence on the sidelines of the game, a voice, a silhouette that endures. And this shot is proof that improvisation, when executed perfectly, can make even trained reflexes miss their mark. Top 6. Marco van Basten. Marco van Basten stood for precision in motion, goals from tight angles, clean finishes under the highest pressure, and efficiency that commands respect even in the statistics. In that scene, however, the space in front of the goal seemed wrongly measured. The ball came from outside. The angle appeared too tight, the time too short. Van Basten took aim in a single fluid movement and struck the ball so that it initially appeared high and wide, almost lost before abruptly curving inward. Modern reconstructions show a rare combination of cut and height, where the rotation carries the ball longer and then suddenly pulls it downward. The goalkeeper didn't jump in correctly, but too logically, because his gaze anticipated the curve, but not the late drop. Physically, the contact can be explained, the sequence of forces described, but exact repetition remains almost impossible because it demands timing down to fractions of a second. Today, Van Basten is no longer on the field, but in archives, in retrospectives, in images of a different era of soccer. This shot remains the moment when geometry briefly failed and precision found a gap that shouldn't have existed. Top 7. George Best. George Best played in an era when spaces seemed tighter and defenders stood closer. Yet precisely there, that one moment emerged that defied all logic. Best had already decided games, shaped titles, dismantled defenses, not with brute force, but with balance and acceleration. When the ball lay before him, everything seemed unspectacular. No run-up, no visible exertion. Then came the contact, soft, almost casual, yet the ball left his foot with a speed that contrasted with the movement. High-speed analyses speak of perfect energy transfer, with minimal backswing, of a point of contact that combines rotation and tempo, so that the ball hovers for an instant before suddenly picking up speed. The goalkeeper reacted instinctively, but his hands grasped at air because his eye read a harmless trajectory, while his body recognized too late how fast the ball truly was. Today, George Best is no longer a player, but an image, a name, a myth that lives on in old footage. And this shot is proof that true danger sometimes arises not from violence, but from the complete absence of effort. These shots didn't just belong to players, they belonged to a different concept of soccer. An era where instinct was faster than calculation, and the ball did things that still raise questions today. If these moments captivated you, stick around, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments which shot shook you the most. Some answers aren't found in the statistics, but in the echo of the stands.